that Vice President Dr. Bawumia is asking stakeholders in the road infrastructure, provision industry to critically evaluate the opportunities in the financing models for funding road construction projects. Now, this, he says, would go a long way to bridge the huge financing gap within the road construction sector. This call follows the New Patriotic Party's flag-bearer stance for a broad-based road tolling system that would include the wealthy in the country. Dr. Bawumia opines that the current tolling architecture is bad and that it would also affect the less affluent in communities. And he wants to rope in the wealthier. Let's listen to him and we'll come back for some analysis on this.
I would like to also make a suggestion that you could consider. Some may say it is provocative, but I think that when we are looking at innovative ways of financing and we say, well, this has to go to the private sector, tolling is, we say tolls as right now designed in many countries. The tolls, you pay specific tolls at particular points. So you're going on the Accra-Tema motorway, you get a toll booth over there. You go to Kaswa, there's a toll booth over there. But it's my view is that if we are going into tolling, we need to think about broad-based tolling. The current architecture that we have in tolling really tends to exclude even the wealthier parts of the population. So if I live in cantonments, East Legon, Ridge, which are the high-end neighborhoods, I will not see a toll. But if I live in Kaswa or somewhere else, I'm likely to meet a toll on the way. There seems to be an inequity in tolling. And I believe that we should look at broad-based tolling. Well, why shouldn't everybody pay? When we put taxes on fuel, we looked at some modeling about a year ago, some modeling on tolling as we were looking at the issue of tolling. I mean, we looked at the current toll revenue as before we abolished the tolls. They were about 70 million Ghana cedis a year. And we said, okay, what if everybody paid? So you put a tax on fuel, for example, 30 pesos or whatever. What if you move, you pay, right? If you don't move, you don't pay. And if everybody pays, you could generate about 2 billion Ghana cedis a year compared to 70 million, right? So that was the thinking, and I think that we should be thinking about methods and that we could make the tolling more broad-based, and then we all contribute to it, and then the revenue will be much higher. So if you can find a way to do this digitally or whatever, we can do it. I mean, but the whole thinking for me is there's an inequity in tolling that some people don't have to bother, but those are the neighborhoods with the best roads, but they don't contribute, right? So you collect from the poorer areas and do the roads in the richer areas. So anyway, as I said, it's a little provocative, so you can think about it as you discuss. But I believe in broad-based tolling, and we should look.
Well, let's analyze this. Join me now is Professor Michael Ayamga. He's an applied economist at the West African Center for Sustainable Rural Development. Thank you for joining us here on Newsdesk. First of all, you've listened to the Vice President. Is it possible to have such a road tolling system?
Yes, thank you. Good morning to our viewers. I'm sitting here smiling because the Vice President has a tendency of coming to the party very late. and projecting ideas that are very old or things that they have rejected as new innovations. And I particularly feel very vindicated for his stance now, because I remember in 2021, particularly on the 23rd of November 2021, when they were muting the idea of this e-levy and talking about replacing it with the road toll, I suggested without any equivocation that we needed to expand our road tolling system to include everybody. And at the time, I suggested that we could place a fixed amount on every vehicle and charge this annually when they go to renew their roadworthiness certificate. What that was going to do was rope in vehicles that never went through toll booths and people who had multiple vehicles that they just renew and park them and were not using them, so that we'll end up actually roping in the wealthy and then leaving the poor who are struggling to feed with the little remittances that their families send to them. In 2021, I was thinking about this and I shared it with all of them. And as usual, across networks and media outlets. And that was largely perceived as some lame idea. And so I'm particularly excited that 2 years on or 3 years on, the Vice President is touting that as an innovation, and that is rather coming to the party really late after the e-levy has wreaked havoc on households and on poor households. And after you have increased the taxes, and you are now seeing something that I suggested as the way to go to improve our tax and revenue mobilization. You put it back. I expected to be given some credit anyway. As a scholar, we don't get paid well, as I always say. So when we are solving problems, we need to be acknowledged. And I'm particularly I'm happy that the Vice President didn't reference me in that particular discourse. The problem is that the language and the description, everything is just as I pointed out. And I'm particularly not happy that the Vice President plagiarized my idea and didn't credit me. But it's better late than never. If they are willing to reverse the e-levy and then replace it with this broad-based road toll that I suggested years ago, it will broaden our tax net. The burden will be placed on people who won't even realize that if somebody is to pay 100 Ghana cedis in addition for owning a vehicle for as road tolls nationally, annually, I don't think that is going to cause any problem. And when we take off the e-levy, we are going to offer some massive relief to the poor people of this country who have to part with the little they get from their relatives all over. So, yes, I'm for it, but it should replace the e-levy.
So it's feasible. It can work. It's an idea that can work if implemented.
It's feasible. It's feasible. It can work. It should be done. But at this point, the masses are already burdened. And if you are adding it to the e-levy, you are going to burden consumers and market women who pay vehicle fares and the rest the more. So yes, it will help us expand our revenue mobilization, but there should be a carrot for the general populace, especially those living at the margins. We need to give them some incentive. I propose this idea as an alternative to the crippling electronic levy, and it should be taken off and then replaced with this. Oh.
Looking at our fundamentals as we speak, do you think that this economy can be revived within the period some of these political parties are promising us?
The challenge here is what happens after we have concluded our debt treatment and we have reached the point where we have to start paying our debts. And if you look at what is happening in the economy, we are not making enough strides to be able to resume the full responsibility of servicing our debts without turning back experiencing. So what I want to say here is that the reason the CD is still falling, the reason inflation is crawling down and not actually falling much faster is because people are weighing their expectations against the end of time when we have to start servicing our debts, when the domestic debt treatment, that moratorium, all those things expire and we have to resume the real servicing of our debt. You realize that we do not have that capacity, and market actors are simply looking at taking these factors into consideration and not flinching. So that's why we are not seeing any significant movement in the fundamentals. It appears they are stable. The next day they are back to where they were. It appears we are turned the corner. The next day we are back there. It's because the future is not that clear for the actors, and that is why we are not seeing that progress.
Thank you, Prof, for your time here on News Desk.